Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes. Friend of the channel, Roger Livermore. He's been on the channel a couple of times. We've Zoomed. I've actually physically had him here and done a little interview. He's written another letter to Joe Farrell, the Chief Constable of Police Scotland, with regards to Operation Copa and the potential investigation into corporate homicide by the Scottish Government. And he's very concerned with her lack of action and says it's bordering on perversion of justice and that sort of thing. Now, as I say, this letter we've got, I'm not going to make comment on the letter as I go through. I think the best thing I can do is just read the letter verbatim for you to mull over, to think about, and then to comment on in the comments. And I think it'd be interesting to see. But it's very well written, very detailed, and of course the man knows exactly what he's talking about from a legal perspective. He was a Crown prosecutor. So you can imagine that from a legal standpoint, this is going to be bang on. So I'm just going to read it verbatim through without comment, and then I'll stop at the end and we'll just leave it. But then you let me know what we're thinking. Okay, so it's for the attention of Joe Farrell. Just before, I've got it on a tablet. It's a long one there. For the attention of Joe Farrell, Chief Constable, Police Service of Scotland. And it's CC'd in for Keir Starmer as well. Dear Chief Constable, number one, it is now 18 months since ASAP NHS reported the Scottish Government to Police Scotland for its homicidal actions in relation to the prevention and control of the SARS-2 COVID-2 pandemic. This was reported to your predecessor, Sir Ian Livingstone, QPM, on the 1st of March 2023, incident number 202-303-301-1579. We pointed this out to you ready for your first day in office on October the 1st, 2023. As a former Crown prosecutor, I provided you with an outline prosecution case. This was under the Corporate Manslaughter and Corporate Homicide Act 2007. And he's attached a copy. A conviction and a competent attendant Section 9 court order provides both the means and the requirement to prevent and control any future pandemic so far as is reasonably practical. It solves the pandemic. The applicable Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, by virtue of Sections 1, 2, 3 Part 1 and 42, make a similar binding legal requirement. This is the biggest crime reported to Police Scotland ever, and nothing has happened. It was not even referred to an external police force as required, given the joint Scottish Government Police Scotland cover-up of the thousands upon thousands of COVID-19 deaths. And the bigger issue is the less likely it is that the Police Service of Scotland will act. For example, there are also the thousands of unlawful patient safety deaths in Scotland. Number two, you and Police Scotland, in collaboration with the Scottish Government, have been engaged in delaying the case and obstructing justice. This involves the joint Scottish Government and Police Scotland exercise to cover up 16,000 COVID-19 deaths in Scotland and their causes. It also involves your consequent interference with free and fair elections. It applies to the absurdly delayed joint police service and SNP government and Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service investigation into the SNP finances scandal known as Operation Branchform. These are, of course, extremely serious criminal offences and must be investigated by an external police force, not by the Scottish Government's Lord Advocate Bain and the Scottish Government's Personal Prosecution Service, the COPFS. Please provide an incident number for the Police Scotland offences on the obstruction of justice and state what arrangements are being made for their lawful independent investigation by an external police force. This is part of the biggest scandal in mainland UK policing. Number 3. Freedom of Information Act, Scotland, 2022, 20 working days response required for the 22nd of September 2024. 3.1. Has the Scottish Government and its agents had any involvement in the investigation and handling of the case of corporate homicide by the Scottish Government, yes or no? This would include Lord Advocate Bain, First Ministers Sturgeon, Yousaf and Swinney, and their ministerial-led government department, the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, and anyone acting on their behalf. We already know that there has been Scottish Government involvement. 3.2. Please state who has been involved from Scottish Government and COPFS and any of their agents. As you know, all Scottish ministers and their staff are prohibited by statutory law, brackets Section 5 Police and Fire Reform Scotland Act 2012, from directing or interfering with and seeking to influence police investigations. It will require an independent criminal investigation of these bodies and individuals to be carried out by an independent external police force. 4. Cessation of office. For your role in obstructing the lawful investigation of the thousands of COVID-19 deaths in Scotland, you cannot command the confidence of people in Scotland. This is irrespective of your criminal offences that are associated. It seems impossible for you to continue in office. There cannot be policing by consent if there cannot be the public confidence, and ASAP NHS have done an outline case for the impeachment of Chief Justice Lord Carloway. This is for his obstruction and prevention of legally required system of trials, for operating an unlawful system of handling and investigating deaths, and for numerous other crimes and misdemeanours. Impeachment is also applicable to chief constables. 5. Covering up patient safety deaths. An even bigger issue than the pandemic is the rolling catastrophe of patient safety deaths in Scotland. There will be about 2,000 reasonably preventable premature deaths in Scotland each year in healthcare and related social care. These are due to the policy of Scottish Government since 2007, including that of their rogue National Clinical Director, Mr. Leach, of ignoring statutory law that applies. Police Scotland and the senior management of the Scottish Police Authority have been involved in covering up patient safety deaths in its direct ministerial report. They include Ian Livingston's role in covering up the 40 suspicious deaths at NHS Ayrshire and Arran, one patient safety death every 4 days at the NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, one patient safety incident every day in NHS Lothians, and currently we have a test case at NHS Ayrshire and Arran. This involves Police Scotland unlawfully colluding with the Scottish Government on covering up a patient safety death. Number 6. Scottish Government's black hole. Police Scotland has been complicit with the Scottish Government in making the 16,000 COVID-19 deaths vanish into a black hole. The first COVID death occurred at the start of March 2020, and not one has seen the light of day. Notoriously and unlawfully, Scotland does not even have an HM coroner system or an equivalency. The Scottish Government's fatal accident inquiry is unlawful, unconstitutional, and dysfunctional. There are only about 30 a year and deny justice by taking years. There is not the required learning. They are an insult to the people of Scotland. This is not lawful. Life is treated as cheap in Scotland. This is not civilization. 7. Scotland's unlawful systems of policing and of justice. We have pointed out elsewhere that Scotland fundamentally and extensively does not have a lawful system of policing or of justice. Both are required to be placed in special measures. Because of their unlawfulness and dysfunctionality, they could collapse at any time. This is all part of the worst failure in Scottish and UK legal history. A root cause is that the Scottish legal profession for decades has operated in cultural isolation without compliance with ECHR and without competence. Number 8. Scotland's Watergate. This unravelling started with a healthcare worker, a member of ASAP NHS, finding that an incident of a mental health patient absconding from a secure unit in NHS Ayrshire and Arran had not been properly investigated. The Scottish Information Commissioner, Kevin Dunyan, found that the board had been covering up all the patient safety incidents, including many deaths. They were covered by the BBC Scotland's health correspondent Eleanor Bradford, and these deaths were then again covered up by senior officers of Police Scotland. Acting under unlawful direction from the Scottish Government ministers, the Lord Advocates Mulholland and Wolfe, acting within the Scottish Government's SFMs, Salmond and Sturgeon, and this was the tip of the iceberg. There were thousands of patient safety deaths occurring across Scotland and almost without exception unlawfully vanishing. The Scottish Government ministers and COPFS under Scottish First Ministers were unlawfully running what must be independent judicial processes. There was and is no lawful system of investigating deaths, nor of prosecutions, and there is no system of fair trial, as the prosecutor in Scotland and the Scottish Government unlawfully operates outside the law. Enemies get prosecuted, for example, Alex Salmond, whilst the government and its friends go free. In constitutional terms, this is an elected, lawless dictatorship, and such are conventionally referred to as the tyranny. The patient safety deaths were the precursors of the COVID-19 pandemic, where the law was again ignored. Scottish First Minister Sturgeon disregarded the UK-wide law on dangerous pathogens. ASAP NHS repeatedly reminded Sturgeon and her ministers right up to the start of the pandemic. Consequently, Scotland and the rest of the UK were the worst for deaths in Europe and the second worst after the US globally. This has laid waste to the Scottish Government approach to public safety and to the pandemic, and it has shown that Scotland does not have a lawful system of justice, nor does it have a lawful system of government. ASAP NHS pointed out that the law and the issues to the Scottish First Ministers, to other ministers, to Holyrood, to Judiciary, to Chief Constables and to the Scottish Police. They all ignore the law and the rule of law. There is not the required separation of powers in Scotland. 9. ECHR, Scotland Act 1998. With sections 57 and 58 of the Scotland Act 1998, and with the fundamental and fatal errors in the Act, the overarching power and responsibility of resolving the rampant unlawfulness lies with the UK government. 10. This is not going away. How did you think you could get away with the aiding and abetting of the Scottish Government in seeking to hide thousands of deaths and its gross criminality? ASAP NHS has done the obvious comparison of the Scottish justice system with that of 1930s Germany. Chillingly, there are 20 major similarities. A compliant force is just one of them. As you should recall, I had a role as the statutory regulator of 3 police forces, collectively the size of Police Scotland. That included their chief constables. I was part of the HSE team that introduced the application of health and safety law to policing, the Police Health and Safety Act 1997. With the Cheshire Constabulary, I carried out the first inspection and safety management audit of a police service. I do know something about policing. With Police Scotland, it is difficult to believe that such an unlawful force and system of policing could exist in the UK. And when this eventually and inevitably comes out, it will be damaging. By due process, it should be expected that this is the end of Police Scotland and that the Scottish Police Authority in their current form. Due to a fundamental error in the Scotland Act 1998, it can be readily argued that legally Police Scotland does not actually exist. Solutions are available. Regards, Roger M. Livermore, HM Principal Inspector and Crown Prosecutor, retired, and then his address. Well done, Roger. He does know what he's talking about. It's a long letter, and I hope that if you've managed to get to the end of it, well done. Thank you for sticking with it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think Police Scotland should disband, be broken up, and led by many different chief constables at a regional level. Thank you.